Happy Wednesday, the day before May the 4th, which is, of course, National Star Wars Day, or honestly should say International Star Wars Day. And another jam-packed episode for you all today. Continuing our season reviews, we get to the bottom six. We have to start with a player who I think was their best player in the bottom six this season, even though he only played half a season. We're going to touch on that right after this drop. We'll also get into what the new GM should do right when he takes a job. What's the first and maybe second or third order of business that he needs to take care of, he or she, of course, whenever that person takes a job. And we'll, of course, end it with some playoff talk. That's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LOSR Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. You can download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So let's jump right into it. So we've already finished the top six. It's crazy how fast this is going. And just putting this out there, we're not going to be doing obviously Brock McGinn or Teddy Bluger or Chris Berry-Cavan because they're not here anymore. So I know they were here to start the season, but we're not going to be really doing them because they're not Penguins right now. So we're only really doing players that are still on the roster as of right now. And we're going to jump into it. We're already in the bottom six. The best bottom six player this year to me, Drew O'Connor. Played 46 games, finally came up for good from Wilkes-Barre, and he was great. 5 goals, 11 points in the 46 games. Of course, the defensive percentage of 52.3%. This was easily his best NHL season by far. Just all of his goals, all 5 at even strength. Underlying wise, when he was on the ice, again, the Penguins had 52.3% of the shot attempts. 15 goals for, 18 goals against. So a little man there. Expected goals, 53.5% of the expected goal share when he was on the ice for the Penguins. Scoring chances, 50.7%, 51.2% of high danger chances, and then high danger goals for, 11 for, 8 against. That rounds up to about 58%. Shooting percentage, about 6.5 this year, which is a little step up from last year, but he shot 5.8. This was the most amount of games that he has played since coming into the NHL. Remember, 2020, 2021, he played 10 games. That last season, played 22. This past season, played 46. And I'll continue to say it. The jump that he has had, honestly, ever since that COVID-shortened season when he played those 10 games to now, it's nothing short of a miracle, to be honest. And he kind of looked like not even an AHL player when he first came up. I was intrigued about him, but he looked like an ECHL player, someone who should be playing in Wheeling. He went down, worked on his game. Last year came up, looked a bit better. And then, this year, he worked on more of his game down in the minors, even though he only played 22 games here last year. He played the rest down in Wilkes-Barre. Had a great offseason, had a great training camp, didn't fully make it. Then comes up, plays 46 games, was here for good, especially down the stretch. And he had one of the goals of the year, I think, for the Penguins late in the season against Tampa Bay Lightning when they won that wild game down in Tampa. That was the one that Jason Zucker won for them in overtime. It was almost like a shades of Jordan Staal goal where he went backhand, forehand on Vasilevsky. I believe it was stick side. And celebration was awesome. It was the vintage Staal goal from the 2009 Stanley Cup final against the Red Wings when, that one, really changed, the course of that series game 4 at that point. That was when I felt like it was like, okay, this looks a little different. But, he made so many great strides here. His defensive metrics were also rock solid. If there is a player in this bottom six right now that should have a full-time spot ready to go next season, it is him. Outside of that, I know Carter's probably going to come back, so he's going to be there. So I guess that's 2. We'll get to him a little later. But if you're asking me in a perfect world, he should be the only player from this bottom six who has a full-time roster spot guaranteed to him next season. I don't think anyone else, maybe you could argue Ryan Paling, that's fine. We'll get to him a little later as well. I don't think anyone else should have a slam dunk roster spot outside of him. He's a young player, fast, skilled, good defensively. You can put him on the PK. Second power play, you don't really need to put him there unless a bunch of injuries happen. Good at even strength. Does all the little things well. He's everything. He's everything you want in a bottom six winger. He's just that plug and play guy. He can forecheck hard, crash the net, win puck battles along the boards. Third, fourth line, it doesn't matter where you put him. I just really enjoyed his game this season, and if you can honestly get a bottom six of a couple Drew O'Connors in there, similar type players, maybe you see O'Connor score a bit more. I know 5 goals in 46 games is nothing to write home about, but still 5 goals in, if you subtract 5 games from there, and that's 41, it rounds up to about 9 to 10 goals for O'Connor, which I would take from him if he can have double-digit goals for this team next season. I would be happy. Yeah, if we want to get there. Yeah, in terms of expectations next season, so he had 11 points in 46 games this season. For a full season, that's around 20, 22. If you want to maybe bump that up to 25, if he can have like 10 to 12, 13 goals next season in a full year with 10 to 15 assists, maybe have 25, 30 points. That's what I'm looking for right now. When it comes to O'Connor, doesn't matter which line you put him on, third or fourth. But if the Penguins need to get younger, especially forward-wise, outside of the top 6, he is an easy player, to bring back in the fold, and just guarantee my roster spot, because I don't think he's going to learn anything by playing any more games of Wilkes-Barre. He showed that he belongs with the major club, and I don't see him going down at all. And he is an RFA right now, so $750K. Nylander, they just signed him to $775K. I don't think he's going to be asking for too much on this contract. You can probably get him for less than $1 million, 11 points. I mean, come on, people. I don't think you're going to get him for $775, but I think you could probably get him for $950K. That should be, I think, a pretty easy negotiation, if you ask me. Honestly, would not be surprised if Mike Sullivan and the interim guys get him done next. They just got Alex Nylander done. Maybe they, get O'Connor done. So, so that new GM doesn't have to deal with the RFAs, because honestly, they don't really have too many RFAs right now. When you look at it, they just got Alex Nylander done. They have Ryan Paling, who makes $750K, and Drew O'Connor, who makes $750K. And that's it. Those are the only RFAs this team has going into the offseason. Honestly, Yins, you could probably ask the interim guys and Mike Sullivan to work out deals with both those players. They're not going to be asking for that much money. And we'll get to Ryan Paling a little bit later, but in terms of Drew O'Connor, they maybe will sign him to like a 2-year deal, $1.8 million total. It would be something around my guess, and I think it'll be very well deserved. Yes, one-way deal doesn't really mean much, but I don't think he's going to be going back to Wilkes-Barre anyway. He's earned the right to be here full-time. I really liked his game this season, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next year. I'm higher on him than some others are, and I think you all have probably noticed that throughout my episodes during the season, and then now the season review. So, in my opinion, in terms of a bottom 6, I'll give him like a solid B+, B, around that range. Room for improvement, but steady as she goes. Very solid player, like the season that he had. Good metrics, just an all-around good player. So that wraps up this segment as we touched on Drew O'Connor's season review. Coming up in the second segment, we are going to discuss what the first order of business should be for the GM. And no, it's not making a trade. I can say that. That's going to come a little bit later. But before we do get to that, we do have to discuss GameTime. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. GameTime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you will have. It is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. You can also get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app right now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase, and terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember, follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So, getting into this segment here, something I thought of the day, and I figured, let's just talk about it on the show. So, when the new GM is hired, and I don't know who that's going to be, I was watching the Carolina-New Jersey game earlier, and what Carolina did to the Devils there was nothing short of spectacular. They really limited the Devils' scoring chances against. The Devils really didn't have any high-danger chances. And Carolina will suffocate you. That doesn't matter who's in their lineup. No Svechnikov, no Cheravainen, no Pacioretty. They blew the Devils out, and they're up 1-0 in the series. Maybe I underestimated Carolina a little bit going into the series because I did pick the Devils in 7 games via my Twitter. But no, I was really impressed with how Carolina played. And again, Eric Tulsky is sitting right there. His hands are all over that roster. They have a lot of cheap depth players contributing on a nightly basis. It's not just Sebastian Aho and Marty Necas and Brent Burns. Pesci score. Jordan Stahl's still playing his butt off. He's been there forever, though. But, Stefan Nason's playing well. Derek Stefan, Jesper Fast. Players like that who, they get the system. They know their role. And they execute it to a T. So I'll keep saying it. Hire Eric Tulsky. Hopefully Carolina lets him interview the Penguins. It will be such a spectacular move. Anyway, whoever this new GM is, he or she, they're going to have a lot on their plate when they take this job. You have to get this roster back to being a playoff team next season. You're going to have to shed some cap space. You're going to have to add to this team, make other trades and all that stuff. Make decisions with goaltending. But I think the first bit of business this new GM will have to do is decide on the coaching staff. And I don't just mean Mike Sullivan, because I do think Sullivan's coming back. I was reading today from Micah Blake McCurdy of Hockey Viz, and he has his model actually rates Mike Sullivan and Jay Woodcroft, the Oilers coaches, the 2 best coaches in the league. So it's like, okay. That's at least nice to see from the analytics community. That goes to show how high they are on him. But I do expect Sullivan to be back. I don't think this is going to be like a Dan Bylsma situation that you saw in 2014 when Mario and Ron Burkle, they dismissed Ray Shero and his assistants, but they kept Bylsma. I think that's a little different, in my opinion. I think everyone was ready for Bylsma to be fired there. I think a lot of people here, I know there's a decent chunk in the fan base right now that does want Mike Sullivan fired, but I think there's also a good chunk that does not, and I personally don't think he's going to get fired. That's just my opinion, though. But I mean mainly the assistants. What is Mike Vellucci's future? What is Tar Reardon's future? What are the other assistant futures on the staff? Because, I and a lot of other people, in the fan base, media who cover the team, everyone in the Penguins community, I think a good majority of them were not happy with how the assistants performed this season. Mike Vellucci's penalty killing unit, I'm sorry, it is not that good. They run that diamond that is just way too passive. In my opinion, it's not aggressive enough as you see like some of the other better penalty kills in the league, like Boston's, for example. Carolina's is very good. New Jersey's is pretty decent. The Penguins need to run a penalty kill similar to that, where they are all over the puck carriers and they're not letting easy access to the zone. It's night and day when I watch the Penguins power play when they fail to gain the zone all the time, and versus when I watch their penalty kill and they let easy entries go in. Again, it's literally just night and day. It's crazy to me, to be honest. So, that's something I really want to see improved going into next season, and I don't know if Vellucci is going to be the one to do that. That's why I do think that Vellucci, he could be shown the door if the GM is not like what he or she sees in that. And then Tar Reardon, I do know that the organization thinks very highly of him. His work with the defenseman is usually very good, but I also know that his power play this season, I know I've looked at the numbers. It's, outside the top 10, about league average. It did not feel like it was league average. Mike Sullivan talked about expected goals and how they ranked top 10 in terms of that man advantage. I am sorry, that may be true, and I'm a big numbers guy, but a lot of other times it looked like total poop. They need to find a fix for the zone entries for that unit, the overpassing, everything involved, the perimeter play, that stupid drop pass, all of it, and especially that slingshot play that they have in the zone. It's really just flat out annoying. So, that's I think the main order of business that this new GM will have is looking at the coaching staff, especially the assistants, and seeing if there are going to be some changes made there. The second order of business for me is honestly, probably getting to work, on getting his assistant, his or her assistants in here. I apologize. I keep correcting myself for just me. I'm being an idiot. But it's just getting the assistants in, who is going to accompany this person over, building out a front office, obviously very important. Please, for the love of God, I don't want, the nepotism in his front office. I don't need to see Ron Hextall hiring his kid to run the scouting or Chris Pryor hiring his son to help run scouting. Please, for the love of God, stop hiring your kids. Bring people in who are actually qualified for these positions. They're going to be building out their analytics department. I'm really curious to see how that goes, but building out a strong front office that is cohesive, that gets along, that understands what the main mission is for this team. That is also very important to me. Honestly, you could say this as a 1A, 1B with, getting the assistant management right and figuring out what to do with the coaching staff. The third order of business to me, and now we'll start to get into other stuff, is Jason Zucker's contract. You look at cap friendly, and there's some free agents out there. Obviously, Tristan Jarry, $3.5 million. Kulikov is gone. Ryan Dumoulin going to walk. Josh Archibald, I doubt, is coming back. Danton Heine and Nick Menounos, see ya. The two UFAs that mean the most are Tristan Jarry and Jason Zucker. No one else really means that much to me. And, Zucker is the one that I would look at first because, the goaltending can wait a little bit. You don't have to deal with that, right as you come in. Zucker, I think, is, a little more important right now because I expect this hire to be made well before free agency starts. So you'll have time to negotiate, with Tristan Jarry if you choose a short-term deal or trade for a goalie, offer sheet one, whatever. My third order of business is, starting contract discussions with Jason Zucker and seeing if you can come to agreement with him. If that fails and you see him go to market, I think then you will see them maybe start negotiations with Jarry on a short-term deal or look to trading for a goalie, something like that. But I think Zucker right now is a higher priority than Jarry, and I honestly don't really think it's that close. That may seem like a hot take to some of you all, but to me, in terms of how Zucker played this season, and I know the team needs a starting goaltender for next season. They're not going to go anywhere without one. But in terms of the free agent market not being super good in terms of replacements, you'll probably have to trade for one for Zucker. I would start negotiations right then and there. So those are my main things that I would do right away in terms of the GM. We'll get to what I would do a little later on, maybe this week or next week, in terms of putting stuff on the back burner. But in terms of right when the person is hired, those are the first few things that I would really be, getting started on, outside of obviously getting to know everyone in the organization and all that stuff, introductory meetings and all that. But that does it for this segment of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Coming up in our final segment, of course, it's the little playoff recap here. Going to continue talking about these games. 4 series left. I have a lot of fun doing it. I love watching these games. That's all coming up to end this episode. Stick around after this commercial break. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter, @LRSORPenguins. Of course, thank you so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So tonight, kicked off day 2 of round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Vegas is right now up 3-2. That's going to be changed by the time that you listen to this episode or watch it. That's been a really fun game to watch. I want 7 games of that. And I already touched on Carolina, New Jersey. Just seeing how Carolina smothered New Jersey. The Devils only had 18 shots tonight. It's very rare when a high-flying team like that is limited like that. But the Hurricanes, they're so good at what they do. They forecheck hard. They get in the way of shooting lanes. They don't give you anything in terms of high danger chances. This is going to be a really tough series for the Devils to win. And I picked them too because I think they have what it takes. And they've gone down to 0-2 before, so they're probably not really worried right now. But and they're going to have to change up their tactics a little bit. They're not going to beat the Hurricanes the way they beat the Rangers because the Hurricanes are much better defensively, even though they're banged up. This is still going to be a really tough series in New Jersey to win. And I was really impressed with how Carolina shut down the top players on New Jersey tonight. So that was a lot of fun. Panthers 4-2 of the Maple Leafs. And Panthers just have like that team of destiny vibe. I don't know, but they are playing some very strong hockey right now. Sergei Bobrovsky has turned the clock back to like 2014 or 2015. He's playing out of his mind for someone that usually stinks in the playoffs. I am just stunned by this. But, he's been awesome. And, say what you want about, Hunter, their ratings might not be that good if the Panthers make the Eastern Conference Final. Whatever. It's cool. It's cool for the sport. They have been to a conference final since 96. So, come on. But they did a really nice job on the Maple Leafs. That game was 2-2 for a little bit before Carter Verhaeghe, who seems like scores every freaking game, scored again. Brandon Montour, he feels like he scored every game, which he has. He scored again. The Panthers, and they got Montour for a third-round pick. They got Carter Verhaeghe for free. Some of those players, they are reaping the rewards, and that team is. I don't think Paul Maurice is that good of a coach. I think this team wins in spite of him, but this Panthers team is compared to the last couple of years, something just feels different about them. And they're giving me that team of destiny vibe right now. And then Kraken beat the Stars 5-4 in overtime, thanks to Yanni Gourde winning it. Joe Pavelski did everything he could. 5-4. He scored all 4 of the Stars goals in the 5-4 loss. Last player to score 4 in a playoff game, I believe was it Kiviranta? I believe it was Yoel Kiviranta that last scored 4 goals in a playoff game. Last player to score 5 in a playoff game, Mario. Yep. The last player to score 5 in a playoff game was Mario Lemieux. So, don't know when that's ever going to be done again, but Pavelski hit 4. Again, I believe he was the first one since Kiviranta from the COVID shortened season. I believe that's actually when the Stars went to the final. So, last player to do was a Star. Now it happened here. Jake Ottinger looked really shaky in the first period, rebounded in the last 2. The Kraken, they withstood a barrage of shots in the third period, but they're able to win that game. The Kraken, they don't have a lot of, star firepower, even with McCann in the lineup, but man, are they deep. They can run 4 lines at anyone. That's what their lineup is, Jens. It's a bunch of really good depth forwards. Got the 40-goal scorer McCann in there when he's healthy. He's obviously very good. But in terms of like that game-breaking superstar, they don't really have that. It doesn't matter. They have the depth. Philip Grubauer is still playing really well. Their defense is very mobile. It's not too surprising to see them here. I was a little surprised that they beat the Avalanche. Just because I thought even without Landeskog and Nichushkin with whatever is going on with him, and that's a really messy story. Go look that up, by the way. I still thought the Avalanche would win, but the Kraken were a good team this season. And if they beat the Stars here, that's going to be really something else. But they're a fun team to watch. I was never really high on Dave Haxtell, especially being their coach. He's making me eat some crow right now because he has been playing a very fun style of hockey to watch. And again, they are so mobile on the back end. Their defensemen are getting into the goal scoring. Their forwards are very deep. They're getting good goaltending. I don't know if it's going to be enough to beat Dallas because I do think Dallas is better equipped right now to beat them. But, as long as they keep playing like this, they're going to be a really tough out. Every series so far has gotten off to a really fun start, and I'm really happy about it. So that wraps up this segment for the playoff update. We do have a couple of games tomorrow, Florida, Toronto, and then, of course, Seattle, Dallas. Those will be on TNT, 7 o'clock for the first one, 9:30 for the second one. That does it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'll be back with another episode for you all, and also just a few hours on Thursday where we continue our season reviews, plus dive into some other topics relating to the Penguins. I promise you, we are going to touch on more stuff as more news comes out. It's just a very slow time right now, but again, that does not mean that we will not do shows, because that is not how this operates. There's always stuff to talk about when it comes to this team. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll do another one of these for you all on Thursday.